For years, rumors have swirled about Jay-Z having a secret son. But now, it looks like those whispers are turning into something much bigger. What once was just speculation has exploded into a legal showdown, and Beyoncé, according to reports, is doing everything in her power to keep the situation from spiraling out of control.
A test that way? Was that ever pursued?
Perfect. 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 Perfect.
They're the ultimate power duo. Their brand, their family, their legacy, it all hinges on maintaining that flawless image. But now, that image could be in serious jeopardy, and it looks like they've been fighting to contain it for years.
But I'm letting y'all know, I really want to know how they gonna navigate this. Look at her during the Fantasia performance. She looked weird and skinny. Cool. And so they would just rather not. And that's all I can say.
And if the truth about Reimer were to surface, it could mean serious trouble for the Carters.
What I've heard about them as a do she love him? I mean, he's really all that she knows. She was ready to leave him years ago, but the industry it's different. And I don't want to say it's an Illuminati contract because I don't know how the Illuminati get down. I really don't know. And I'm not going to lie to you and say I do. But essentially, she's been stuck, right? But I believe this is going to be her chance to get out. And according to what I heard, if certain things that I can't even speak on come out, she gone. She's gonna protect her image. All right. And this, I mean, I don't know what would be the bigger divorce, Will and Jada or Beyonce and Jay-Z. But just know everybody's gonna be talking about it. TMZ's gonna talk about it first, and we're gonna be talking about it probably for 6 months.
The timeline makes the story even more complicated. Reimer's mother, Wanda, reportedly met Jay-Z in the early 90s, long before Beyoncé entered the picture. At the time, Wanda was a teenager and Jay-Z was in his early 20s. According to Wanda, the two had a brief encounter that left her pregnant. Jay-Z, meanwhile, was focused on launching his music career, and Wanda didn't have his real contact information, making it nearly impossible to reach him. Things took another turn when Wanda gave birth while in a relationship with a man named Robert. He ended up signing the birth certificate, even though, according to reports, he knew the child wasn't his. Some suggest he did it so Wanda could qualify for public assistance. Wanda, still recovering from childbirth, allegedly had no idea he had signed it. Reimer says he only learned the truth around the age of 8, when his mother sat him down and revealed that Jay-Z was his biological father. Not long after, Wanda passed away. But before her death, she signed a sworn affidavit naming Jay-Z as the father, a document that would go on to fuel a legal battle that has dragged on for years.
My Ramir, right? Ramir Stoudemire is his name? We'll pull his name back up. The alleged son, which I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I've talked to his godmother, I said his name complete. Who the hell is Stoudemire? Satterwaith. All right, Ramir Satterwaith. Jay-Z's alleged son, and I have to say alleged because I have to say alleged. But just so you guys know, this part is not alleged. Jay-Z and his team, they have been ducking and dodging, taking the DNA test. They've been trying to block all of the work that Ramir's godmother, Lily Cooley, is doing in the court. Because, well, if this truth comes out, and I mean like come out on all platforms, basically we're gonna know that Jay-Z was messing around with Ramir's mother when she was a teenager and he was a grown-ass man. Ramir's biological mother is now deceased, may she rest in peace, but nonetheless, she gave birth to Ramir in high school. Jay-Z was a grown man, you put 2 and 2 together, okay? But Jay-Z and his team been blocking him in court every which way, paying off people in the courts, allegedly. Right. In addition to that, when the story about Ramir first actually broke on Daily Mail, because Daily Mail actually broke that story, Jay-Z sued them, put him in litigation. So, the story's out there, but it's really not out there, and a lot of people don't touch it. Which I gotta know too is that when it comes to media is corrupt. Like, most media is owned by 5 companies. But even when you talk about like independent media, a lot of us are corrupt, right? A lot of people want an invitation to the Rock Nation brunch. They want to work with this publicist. They want to work with that person. They want this interview or that interview. So a lot of times they choose not to cover certain stories to protect certain relationships. It just is what it is, right?
With the support of his legal guardian, Lily Cooley, Reimer filed a civil lawsuit against Jay-Z in 2014. They claim that for years, they have been trying to get him to submit to a DNA test, but every attempt was met with setbacks, accusations of fraud, legal roadblocks, and repeated efforts to have the case thrown out. This is also where Beyoncé reportedly comes back into the picture. Some sources allege she urged Jay-Z to keep the matter under wraps, especially once she understood more about the timeline. From her perspective, this wasn't just a private issue. It carried the potential to attract the wrong kind of attention. At a time when so many public figures in the industry were facing scandals that threatened their reputations, the Carters may have viewed this case as a serious risk to their image. Adding fuel to the fire, Jaguar Wright has claimed that Beyoncé has long been running damage control, and even went so far as to allege that Blue Ivy isn't really her biological daughter.
Beyoncé couldn't get pregnant. Not naturally, not normally. What I do know is this. When Beyoncé got on that stage with that fake baby bump,
oh yeah,
it was lined up with the same timing of where Kathy White would have been in her second trimester. And when we all watched her get on TV with that fake pregnancy belly that folded over,
yep,
she sat down, the timeline of when she delivered Blue Ivy lines up almost perfect with the timeline of when Kathy White would have delivered.
wow.
We all know that Blue Ivy came from a surrogate. They shut that hospital down like a president had just been. And parents who had just had children themselves weren't even allowed to see their own kids for 24 hours.
They bounced my family off the 6th floor and from the waiting room and made them go downstairs and get her.
There's a lot of us that are coming together to deal with this issue. This is not by any means just us.
Because of the security that was locking that whole thing down.
$1.3 million is alleged that Beyoncé and Jay-Z, the Carters, paid this hospital to have the right to have their baby there in complete secrecy and privacy.
Okay, so the surrogate was carried out and no one heard her speak a word.
Do we know if the surrogate was alive?
They typically turned some of the cameras off so that there was no pictures that were being taken.
Despite Reimer repeatedly stating that he isn't after Jay-Z's money or fame, only the truth, many have still questioned his motives. He works 2 jobs, supports himself, and has insisted this was never about chasing publicity. My whole thing was just to see who my father was, he explained in one interview. Now, with the court finally ordering a DNA test, that answer may soon be within reach. What's even more intriguing is that Reimer seems to be one step ahead. He's already attempted a DNA test with a woman alleged to be Jay-Z's firstborn.
That's the last time I heard from her. She wanted to do a test with me, and it got sent to the house when I was in Jersey. I don't want to give the address we was at, but it got sent to the house. My godmother, she told me this is what I needed to do. I pulled it out. I had to spit in it, fill it up to a certain line, shake it. It came with 2 different tubes and all that. I put it in a box and shipped it back off, and never heard anything else.
And I've never seen a photo of her. Do you guys have resemblances?
I wouldn't. I mean, I would think so. I did see a couple photos. I would say I look like her in some ways, or she looks like me. But I can't fully say that. I don't know. So it just would be me.
If the DNA test confirms Reimer's claim, the fallout could be massive. It would mean Jay-Z fathered a child before the birth of his publicly known kids. And it could also suggest that Beyoncé has long been aware of the situation, but chose to keep it private to protect their family's carefully crafted reputation. What's even more surprising are reports that Jay-Z was, at one point, open to building a relationship with Reimer. But when Beyoncé allegedly learned the full story, including Wanda's young age at the time of their encounter, she reportedly insisted the matter stay hidden. And honestly, that would line up with how Beyoncé has always operated, controlling the narrative and keeping anything that might tarnish their image firmly out of the spotlight.
Let's be clear. The Cowboy Carter album is a piece of shit. But for the baby to win Album of the Year for Cowboy Carter, let's talk about how wrong that is. Why? Did the Grammys feel the need to pick up her self-esteem a little bit because the Country Music Awards didn't embrace that project? Is everybody forgetting that? It's supposed to be a country album, and it wasn't acknowledged by any of the country community. But now that she won Grammy Album of the Year,
I want to embarrass this young lady, but she has more Grammys than everyone and never won Album of the Year.
The only thing the Grammys just did is prove how irrelevant a Grammy is. Because giving her a Grammy Award for that piece, and the simple fact that songs like Daughter,
Bathroom attendant, let me right in,
was on that album. Have we forgotten? Siri, I need the lyrics for Beyoncé, Daughter.
As the court deadline for Jay-Z's DNA test draws near, the tough questions are piling up. Why wasn't this resolved years ago? Why did it take endless legal battles and years of silence? And perhaps the biggest question of all, how much did Beyoncé really know? Sources close to the situation suggest she may have been more involved behind the scenes than most people realize. Now that the court is finally forcing action, keeping those secrets under wraps may prove harder than ever. According to reports, Reimer and his guardian Lily allege that both Jay-Z and Beyoncé used their influence to block a DNA test. Even more shocking, they eventually filed legal complaints against their own attorneys, accusing them of working against their interests instead of fighting for them.
And so, in January of 2022, a New Jersey judge issued an order prohibiting Rymir, his mother, and his godmother from being able to file anything in the state of New Jersey without the judge first reviewing and determining that it was filed properly, with proper claims and proper requests for relief. And then the judge sent this order prohibiting them from filing anything, basically across all of New Jersey, so everybody was aware that they can't do that. And from there, Rymir, his mom, and his godmother sued the courts. Like literally sued New Jersey Supreme Court and judges in both Pennsylvania and New Jersey. But those lawsuits were dismissed with prejudice.
They believed the attorneys were secretly communicating with Jay-Z's legal team, making decisions behind closed doors that ultimately undermined Rymir's case. Lily claims these weren't just minor mistakes, but major procedural errors that completely derailed their efforts. Because of this, a Philadelphia court eventually dismissed the case. Meanwhile, Jay-Z appeared to address the situation through his music. In his song Heard About Us, he rapped, "Billie Jean in his prime for the 1000th time, the kid ain't mine." The line seemed like a direct nod to Rymir's claims, drawing a parallel to Michael Jackson's famous track about disputed paternity. He added, "Every day I'm getting sued. I show up to court without a suit." Whether subtle or not, those lyrics were widely taken as a public denial, fueling even more tension around an already emotional case. But now, the momentum seems to be shifting.
Biggest claim in this new lawsuit actually has to do with New Jersey denying his mother's petition based on jurisdiction. Rymir argues that the New Jersey court denying his mother's petition based on lack of jurisdiction was incorrect because he has proof that Jay-Z lived in and owned property in New Jersey at the time the petitions were filed. But here's the thing. And I'm not a lawyer, but it seems like Rymir is partly right, but also partly wrong. So New Jersey did deny his mother's petition based on jurisdiction, but it was based on two types of jurisdiction. The first is personal jurisdiction, and that has to do with a person's ties to a state. So if Jay-Z and his attorneys were telling the judge that Jay-Z has no ties to New Jersey at all, which is apparently what they did, and that's why this case should not be handled in New Jersey, then that means Rymir has a point because it would indicate New Jersey did in fact have the right and the authority to rule on a case involving Jay-Z. However, the second type of jurisdiction that the case was denied on is called subject matter jurisdiction, and that's the bigger problem. So subject matter jurisdiction has to do with a court's ability or authority to hear a case at all. So in this instance, Rymir's mother originally filed this case in Pennsylvania. It was determined to be under the jurisdiction of Pennsylvania. The case was then argued in Pennsylvania, and a Pennsylvania judge ruled on the case. So at this point, unless Rymir is able to show that the case should have never been in Pennsylvania to begin with, or that there's some kind of massive evidence or reason that a New Jersey court should step in and ignore what Pennsylvania ruled on, he's essentially stuck with the Pennsylvania ruling, because states aren't in the habit of just stepping in and overruling what another state has already decided. If that was the case, every time somebody lost a case, they would just refile it in a new state. So a New Jersey judge attempted to explain the subject matter jurisdiction issue to Rymir and his mother at a hearing, but Rymir's response to that was, if Jay-Z wasn't famous, he believes the situation would go differently. Specifically, Rymir told the judge that it seems like since Jay-Z is famous, he's untouchable and has the ability to get around a lot. The judge then replied to that remark by telling Rymir that she actually had no idea who Jay-Z was, and it wasn't until her law clerk told her that he was Beyoncé's husband that she said, quote, "Oh, I know Beyoncé."
What's troubling now is that Rymir has seemingly dropped his lawsuit without explanation, and there are several shocking theories about why that might be.
Everybody's talking about the fact that he is currently suing his first biological son to quiet him and put a gag order on him. Why would he be doing that? I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that Rymir's mother was a minor when she conceived Rymir with Mr. Carter, who was a grown adult. What kind of family man is that? You don't want anyone to know, you or your wife, don't want anyone to know who your actual biological children are, because most of them were created with minors while you were an adult. He's been in court with this young man for the past decade fighting taking a DNA test. If he's not your kid, take the DNA test. Simple. The young man is not your son. Why have you spent so much money trying not to take a DNA test? Take the DNA test if he ain't your kid. You're such a proud family, man. While you fight back the truth about your firstborn biological son, because you don't want nobody to know that his mama was barely 15 when you made her a mother and you were a grown man. I'm here.
Yeah.
Him and Blue Ivy got the same mouth.
Hoping he got paid. I'm hoping he got something for this, and that's why he's going away, but it don't look like it. But then if Jay-Z does give him a settlement, he's not going to talk about it publicly, of course. I don't know.
But who are we to get mad at Ramir if his life was really being threatened and he like, you know what? I'm going to just go and withdraw. Because here's the thing, right? Jay-Z has a certain image, and Jay-Z has been able to keep this story quiet, keep it hush-hush, but there is something to it. Even if he's not this biological man, because it's a grown man, biological man's father, he must have slept with his mother. Like, he know who his mother is. Because if this was just a complete stranger and you had never slept with his mama, you would have been like,
I didn't know who your mother was. Like, I have no clue what you're talking about. And you wouldn't give a damn about giving us some DNA. Or you would at least come out and say, I don't know who you are. So, what I will say is that between Ramir's mother, his late mother, and Jay-Z, there must have been a relationship. And see, the problem with you, Jay-Z, when you was in your 20s, you was dicking and dodging. You was giving out meat everywhere. Let's just keep it real. A dude like Jay-Z, you was Jay-Z. You started off being what, Jazzy? Then it went to Jay-Z. You was doing your thing. You got a bunch of kids up in Maryland and up in that area. You know what I mean? Allegedly. Don't come for me. I'm just saying. Did you really want us to believe that Blue Ivy was your first child, Jay-Z? Well, actually, Beyonce was pregnant before that with the baby. And I think they was going to name that baby Brooklyn. And then she lost that baby. And then she got pregnant with Blue when she was shooting the cover of the album 4. They were in Paris. They had some good hot sex that late night, early morning. And then Beyonce got up with his nuts still in her and went and shot the shot. And she was like, ooh, we just got it in last night. And didn't know she was pregnant at the time. Okay, so I guess I'm a real Beehive fan. Anyway, with that being said, and I be knowing your ovulation, I say all that to say, like, did you really want us to believe that Blue was your first child? Come on.
But the situation is still hanging by a thread, as Ramir is expected to continue pursuing legal action against his alleged father. And if the DNA test confirms what he's been claiming all along, this won't just be about one man's search for identity. It could rattle the carefully crafted image of one of music's most powerful families.